welcome to Trusty Chords, the podcast which aims to celebrate music and those that create it. For as long as I've loved music, I've loved that sort of music that connects with people for so many different reasons. When I was in my teenage years, I discovered a Sydney band called Tonight Alive, who managed to find themselves as one of the more prominent purveyors of pop punk out of Australia. Across 4 amazing albums over the span of 7 years, Tonight Alive found themselves dishing out songs that were heavy yet sweet, and fun yet serious, offering fans the world over, including a strong following in the famously hard-to-crack American market, something with which they could resonate. Following the release of 2018's Underworld, Tonight Alive decided to pull back a little bit, announcing something of a hiatus while they worked on their mental and physical health. After a brief return in 2020, the world was treated to one of its members doing something new and unique. Yes, in 2022, vocalist Jenna McDougall announced the launch of her Hevenshe project. Not quite a side project, and more of a new way in which she could focus her musical efforts, Hevenshe has since boasted a full EP by way of 2023's Wild Wild Heart, and now amidst new shows from Tonight Alive, has seen a new single by way of Essential. As you may have guessed, the wonderful Jenna McDougall is my guest this week, and she was an absolute dream to speak to. So I strongly urge you to check out Hevenshe's Essential, bump some classic Tonight Alive, and once you're done giving that a spin, have a listen to our chat, and I'll see you at the end of the episode for some general housekeeping. Jenna McDougall, thank you very much for joining this episode of Trusty Chords.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Tyler.
Now, for those who might not recognise your name, could you give me a quick few words on who you are and I guess why we're chatting today?
Sure. I'm currently making music with the artist name Hevenshe, so it's my solo project. But majority of my career was spent as the frontwoman of Tonight Alive. We're a Sydney band. We called ourselves a pop punk band, but that was an of the time kind of phrase, yeah.
Well, I mean, pop punk is still a pretty apt phrase. I mean, you know, some of us out there who still love bands like, you know, Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance, a bit more emo than pop punk, but you know, that sort of that age and era. I mean, pop punk is still a pretty apt term for it all.
You're right, yeah, and it's sort of having another resurgence now, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, pop punk never dies. That's for sure.
Oh, I love that.
But I guess what I'd love to do at the start of these podcasts is go back in time to where this sort of love of music first formed. So for you, Jenna, do you have a recollection of your earliest memory of when music first resonated with you?
Yes, in the backseat of my dad's car specifically. My parents both had, you know, sort of several CD stacks in their cars. So we'd have the regular albums that were on repeat with each of them. But my dad in particular is a big rock and roll head. So, you know, he's the reason my first gig was Deep Purple and Status Quo. And, you know, the first albums that I remember loving were like Queen, AC/DC, Led Zeppelin. But yeah, backseat of my dad's car on the way to school and on the way to camping trips and things like that was where I fell in love with music, and I realised I could sing and I could tap on my knees and play along to drum beats and air guitar and things like that. So that was sort of the blueprint.
I mean, I feel like a lot of folks who are in the sort of, I guess, the rock or rock adjacent genres tend to have that sort of similar thing where it usually ends up being in the back of, I don't know, Holden Commodore or something, listening to Triple M or something like that.
Yes, Triple M, yes.
And hearing all those sort of bands, and it just sort of really ingrained within you. So, I mean, you mentioned some of the real classic rock bands there, but obviously the sort of genre of music that folks first knew you for was a bit more of the pop punk vibe. So where did that sort of love come into it? Or was that just a bit of a gradual evolution?
Yeah, I think probably around year 5 or 6, so at the age of 11 or 12, was when Avril was popular, Simple Plan came into my world, and Blink-182. So like sort of late primary school, early high school was when those bands were kind of at the height of their success as well. And that kind of changed everything. That changed from me playing the classical guitar to playing an electric guitar, for instance. And yeah, it's probably dressing more androgynously as well, being given more permission from those type of artists to express yourself differently, and getting interested in skate culture. And yeah.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I also feel like you're really just sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Describing my own life there. I mean, I was also I mean, I think
Really?
we might be around the same age, but we know in fifth grade, Avril Lavigne. I mean, absolute. I mean, still an absolute top tier artist for me, and
Yes.
it's a sort of thing which some people would say is embarrassing, but I've got 3 copies of Let
No.
Go behind me as we speak. It's a
Wow.
killer album, and yeah, but
Hmm.
you're right though. There's a lot more permission that comes about from that sort of thing as well. And I mean, Avril herself was a bit of a style icon
Mm.
in terms of sort of saying you
Mm.
don't need to adhere to gender norms and everything like that. And
100%.
I feel as though that is also something. I mean, I don't know if I'm generally making leaps there, but you are going from sort of getting into the pop punk sort of side of things there. So this love of music going into playing music. You mentioned getting electric guitar before as well. So when did you
Mm.
really sort of start playing music in earnest like that?
Well, I got a hand-me-down guitar at the age of 10. And as a kid that was always writing poetry and writing in journals, that turned into songwriting pretty quickly. But I'd say, yeah, the gigging kind of started at the age of 15. And I was thinking about how the hell was I getting gigs at that age? I think it was sort of like MySpace messages,
Oh
just getting
yeah,
those invitations to play local community events and what are they called? Sort of youth centers and things like that.
like the old blue light
So
disco sort of vibe, sort of thing, or
I'm not familiar with that,
mm,
but PCYCs and
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a similar sort of
um,
thing, I think. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Sort of safe and sort of all inclusive, all ages type of event
totally.
that your
Right.
parents take you
Of
to.
course. So, so I guess when you started playing music like that, did you have any particular like? I mean, you obviously mentioned some of like bands like Simple Plan or stuff like that, Blink 182. Were they the ones you were
Mm.
sort of like idolizing, wanting to sort of emulate in your own way?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, I can remember being in year seven and listening to like Green Day, Simple Plan, Fall Out Boy, in, having that one earphone in your coming up through your uniform and over your ear
Oh
and
yeah,
hiding under your hair. And yeah, very much. Oh, and Good Charlotte was a part of that era for me too. Blink-182 very much. Like getting all the burnt CDs from friends, mixtapes from boyfriends, and um, wanting very much to like, practice playing those songs in my room and like jump along to the music, but the way the band would perform it. And yeah, it was very much sort of mirroring that in my early teens.
yeah. And you also did mention before, like writing poetry when you were sort of like starting out in really in the world of music. Now, I know
Mm.
that a lot of folks, and I may just be talking from personal experience, a lot of folks who like playing music and writing poetry at a young age, they tend to look back on that poetry and cringe a little bit. Um, do you do the same thing, or did some of those lyrics end up on Tonight Alive albums down the way?
Oh, they definitely did. Like, yeah, I suppose I'm trying to think of like kind wording because dramatic is what I want to say, but I don't think that's fair. I actually look back and go, wow, like I, I wanted to feel so deeply and I wanted to experience life so deeply. And that's why, I was such an emotionally expressive kid. Yeah, of course, there's like a little element of cringe, but I kind of like, I thank her as well because I'm like, you're doing serious groundwork for me to become an artist, really like digging deep and letting yourself feel so extremely, and finding an outlet to use for that, not just, and there were huge outbursts when I was growing up, but music became an outlet for me to safely express myself and also, I don't know, create art and connect with people as well. So it's really beneficial.
And finding that safe
Yeah.
outlet is so vital as well in that young age, especially when you're
Mm,
trying to find yourself and just find your general place in the world. It's
that's
such
a good
a vital
point.
thing to have. Um,
Mm,
but I guess as well that I mean obviously we are here to talk Hevenshe as a bit more of a
mm,
pertinent topic, but again I from a chronological point of view I'd be remiss not to sort of go on to Tonight
mm.
Alive. So how did Tonight Alive form? Like what was the general I guess plan at the start? Were you aiming to sort of play shows internationally and all that sort of thing, or were we just having a bit of fun?
Oh, we were very ambitious, actually.
Oh yeah.
We had huge dreams, and we sort of just believed it would happen. And we didn't really have self doubt. I don't know where that came from because I have been a fairly self conscious and insecure person, in different ways and at different times. But I was really fiercely determined to follow in the footsteps of all those bands that we loved. And the amazing thing was so much of that manifested in the form of either supporting those bands on tours or being on festival lineups with them, or even doing collaborations with them, songwriting, this kind of stuff, or meeting them. It's like all those worlds collided for us, which was amazing. But the way we started was actually that a few of the boys were in a band together, mostly doing covers and playing house parties. And I was the drummer of my school jazz band. And we played at a church night, which was kind of just like an opportunity for young people to just play some music in front of an audience. But realistically, there was like four acts in front of a few parents. So it really wasn't a gig. But I played in the school jazz band, and I met Cameron, our bassist, that night, who was playing a Red Hot Chili Pepper cover set, you know.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the beginning of our friendship at the age of 14. And from that point, we started going to gigs together. And when their singer left their band, he asked me if I'd like to try some songwriting with them. And that was the first time I wrote songs with electric guitars in them, for instance. You know, I was sort of a Missy Higgins, Delta Goodrem type of singer-songwriter before that.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So you didn't particularly foresee a future in which you were sort of going to be really becoming like that. I mean, I don't want to use the phrase rock chick, but that's what a lot of people would sort of use to describe. So you didn't particularly see that sort of future happening for you then when you were doing that Missy Higgins style stuff.
Not exactly. It wasn't until probably the pop punk influence, but particularly hearing Paramore for the first time and realizing like I could do what I'm doing without a guitar in my hands and maybe sing over heavier music. So, but that was at age 15. So a lot sort of evolved at that time for the trajectory of my career.
Yeah, because I mean, Tonight Alive is a band who had some pretty wild success when I was in group. I mean, you guys have played more shows in the US than I've had hot dinners, and that's not something a lot of Australian artists can say. So, I mean, was that a little bit dizzying to see something that you started to do so well, and especially at such a young age as well?
It was sort of just like a strap in and go on the ride kind of situation, and we were all best friends, so we weren't scared of anything. And there was sort of that naivety of youth and probably a little bit of arrogance of youth. Not to say that any of us are actually arrogant people, but we were just so invested and so hell-bent about what we were doing. And that dreams kind of kept coming true. Our first record we made with the producer of Jimmy Eat World, Bleed American, and Dude Ranch by Blink-182, and one of the Starting Line albums, which I can't think of the name of right now, but just all this music that we loved. Like this producer reached out to us, and we made our first record with him. So yeah, it was a pretty amazing, serendipitous run, really.
I was actually just trying to look up the producer of that album, but I couldn't get my phone happening fast enough.
Sorry, I should have named it. It's Mark Trombino.
Mark Trombino, that's right. Yeah, because I was going to say I mean, I'm sure that's a name that I'm going to know the second that you say it, because all of those albums and artists. I mean, there's some real heavyweights there, that's for sure. But I guess as well, we shouldn't necessarily linger on Tonight Alive too much. But the group had a little bit of a hiatus at the end of 2018. Then there's since been a few shows, including just days prior to us talking, really. But during the group's hiatus, you decided to kick off Hevenshe. Now, I don't want to call it a side project, obviously, because it's you. But I guess talk me through this. Tonight Alive is put on ice. The world ends due to COVID, and then you launch Hevenshe in 2022. What was the process, and what was the inspiration there?
Well, the hiatus was sort of brought about through burnout on behalf of all of us. We sort of said, let's just take 6 months off. We'd had a really big year and a lot of health kind of issues between us all. And we'd also lost a member of the band. So it was a really big year, even though it was successful with the release of an album called Underworld. We said, just let's take 6 months off. Let's cancel the American tour that we're about to do and just take a breather. But yeah, no one was really ready to pick back up on the project after 6 months. And then it was only another 6 months before COVID started. So 2019 was kind of the what would you say? It was like a gap year moment of like, I'd never lived out of home. I'd never not been on tour with my band. Like I'd never lived in another city. So I kind of had this beautiful new experience of, I don't know, even though it's sort of like becoming an adult, I also actually felt like I was reclaiming some youth that I hadn't experienced. I hadn't had a normal life since I started touring at about 17, 18.
Mm.
So it was really, really special, and I was getting introduced to a lot of new music, and I felt excited about starting a project of my own, but I had very low self-esteem about it and not a lot of confidence that I'd be able to do it alone. But I think that was the very thing that made me persevere into that sort of dark night.
Mm.
It was like, I'm scared and I don't think I can do it. I have to find out. And it did actually take years for me to even write songs that I was excited by. And I kept feeling like I need a collaborator, I need a manager, I need a something. But in the end, I didn't have help. And I ended up finishing the record deals that I was signed to with Tonight Alive. We were all signed as individual members to our record label. And yeah, just kind of tidied everything up and like just created a fresh slate during COVID. And if you don't mind me going on this tangent a bit more,
Feel free.
yeah, I got a piano in lockdown, which was a bit of an interesting. I don't know what inspired me to do that. Probably just because they're usually $100 on Marketplace, as long as you can move it yourself, type of thing.
Yes.
So yeah, I was really fortunate. I found a local piano, and a friend with a band moved it into my house, and I ended up writing so much more music than I've ever written before in those 2 years. And I did a lot of healing and processing and just kind of finding myself. And yeah, it wasn't till after the lockdowns and everything, 2022, that I actually started releasing the music. So it was a really kind of perfect hibernation period.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
most people just did Netflix, but you decided to launch a totally separate music career as well. It's a little bit more productive than some of us. But I guess with Hevenshe, it's undeniably you, but it's certainly different to what you had in Tonight Alive. So I guess what was the goal? I guess, or what did you aim to get out of Hevenshe?
Oh, I mean, I aim to get out of it. Sort of, you've got me off guard, actually.
That's what I'm all about. I'm all about making sure the artists aren't feeling too comfortable or anything. They're going to be thinking critically.
I mean, I wasn't wanting to get anything out of it. I think it was more like, how can I continue having a healthy relationship with music? Maybe a healthier relationship than I've had with music. That's, yeah, for me, it's to, it's a vessel to continue connecting with an audience and to continue hopefully affecting people at a emotional and transformative level, which is something that is important to me. But how can I continue expressing myself in an authentic way that is for the first time like autonomous and just my own? And I don't have to answer to anybody or negotiate the sound of a song, or yeah, it just felt like a real great opportunity for me to have freedom as an artist. And that was true in terms of like not launching this with a team either.
Totally.
And doing the first couple of years, yeah, completely pretty much like unsupported. I had a booking agent for a short period of time. I trialed managers, but yeah, it sort of seemed that it was the cosmic way for me that I was going to have to do this on my own. So it's sort of been a rite of passage, actually, it feels like.
Because you mentioned at the start, or at the start of our little conversation about Hevenshe, having a lot more sort of fear about it going forward. So how are you feeling about it now, I guess? Because when you're in a band, you've got other people there you can bounce ideas off, and then there's a bit more of a team to sort of effectively say, hey, maybe don't release this one. It's a it's a 20-minute spoken word track, just things like that. But obviously with Hevenshe, you haven't got that safety net, and it's just you. So is that freedom liberating, or is it a little bit more scary? Or I guess what's your relationship to that feeling?
That's a wonderful question. I feel like so far it's been very instinctual, and I've only put out music that felt really exciting and authentic to me in those moments. And I've actually also been fortunate to have a community on Patreon and Discord that I talk about things with and I share demos with. And they've been actually quite involved behind the scenes in that way. But yeah, very much a learning curve of trusting myself And actually, that was very present in Tonight Alive. I definitely had to fight for certain songs to come out, and but the great, for instance, like just to give context, the song Temple wasn't even being considered as a single
Oh,
from
really?
that last record. Yeah, and
It's
that's
amazing.
ended up sort of yeah, thank you. It's one of our best and sort of most, I don't know. I was going to say best and biggest songs, but it's not actually, got the most streams or anything like that. But it's a song we close our sets
Hmm.
with.
Well, it's one of the
And
most impactful, at least.
yeah, I feel that too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really had to like, kind of fight for that one. So yeah, the difference with Hevenshe is that no one's pushing back
Totally. Yeah. You can. Yeah.
at this stage.
You can really have that freedom and actually just say, you know what, I am going to put out that 20-minute spoken word track.
I
But
kind of love that idea.
yeah, well, just be
Thank you for that.
just be sure to thank me in the liner notes. No.
I will.
So last year we also saw the Wild Wild Heart EP, and that one seemed to do really well amongst the fan community and everything. So how did that feel for you? What, like, was it good? Sorry, how did it feel to get that out there and have something tangible from Hevenshe out there in this sort of, like, I guess, slightly larger scale way? It's an EP, but it's still a larger project than just a single, for example.
Oh, it gives me so much more appreciation for how much of a big project it is to put something out. Just because I'm pretty much the only hands that's going through. I do have a collaborator that's a behind the scenes friend of Hevenshe that we kind of strategize together and that kind of thing. But really, like, not having moving. How do you say it? There's no invisible kind of mechanisms happening. So, like, I really appreciate how much it took to put that record out, and I'm talking energy, time, money, and collaborators in the way of art and like the vinyl plant that I went through, and the person who did all the postage for me. It's like it's such a huge project to put out a body of work in a physical way, and I'm talking about vinyl now, but it felt like a really big achievement. And I'm really proud of that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see how, yeah, you could see it as a small thing in some ways, but then it's kind of like a massive project in other ways.
And I mean, honestly, just like having other people to help out in any sort of capacity is absolutely an absolute lifesaver sometimes. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I spent last night, packing some of my band's own records. I only packed 8, and I tell you, by the end of it, I was thinking, I need an assistant for this. So
Totally.
it can take a lot out of you. But but currently, we're chatting a week before your new single comes out, but when this podcast comes out, it'll be a week old. So tell me about Essential. What's the story with this one? And should we be expecting more to follow soon?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'd really like to be following up the new music into 2025, like regularly with new releases, and that's the hope and the plan. But Essential kind of came together in a few different parts with a few different people. This is the first time I've collaborated as Hevenshe with Wild Wild Heart. Every song on the record is solely written by me, which was sort of another part of why that felt like such a big achievement. It felt so nice to have my name as the songwriter and as the owner of the master and things like that. Yeah, going forward with this one, this is a collaborative one with friends, and I wrote it about a few different themes. I was coming out of a sort of spiritual community, which you could maybe view as a cult. So a little bit of a controversial topic here. But coming out of that, I sort of started realizing, like, it's quite tiring trying to be perfect and pure and hyper disciplined in any type of practice. And it was sort of something that made me feel quite disconnected from the world and disconnected from myself. In a community like this, people don't call you by your name; they call you by a different name, a spiritual name, like as if you're christened and you kind of get a different name. So things like that were making me feel quite disconnected, and I kind of reflect on that in a few parts of the song. But simultaneously, I'm talking about wanting to kind of get away from living in modern society and in the city, and kind of running away to the country. So I'm probably describing this in a bit of a discombobulated way, actually.
Oh,
but
it's completely fine. I'm definitely picking up what you're throwing down.
Yeah, thanks. There's a little bit of existential dread in this song of just sort of reflecting on my grandpa, who was passing away at the time from dementia, and just being like, fuck, man, is this going to happen to all of us? And what really matters in life? And like, if I was going to die tomorrow, what would I do today? And just there's a sort of sense of urgency and desperation in that song to like live fully, live fearlessly, live now. And yeah, it wraps up quite a few themes in one place, but it feels kind of really, really true to me, maybe in a way that a song hasn't told my story as a person as much before. I sort of talk about experiences in a lot of my songs, but this just feels like I'm really telling people who I am, maybe for one of the first times. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
And I'm also very glad that I asked you to describe it, because I could not have done it justice in any way had I tried to explain it like that. So thank you so much for that, Jenna.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you.
Now, so when Hevenshe launched, Tonight Alive were on this bit of a hiatus, but now it seems like there's at least a bit of a tenuous ongoing existence. There's been a few shows here and there. So will Tonight Alive and Hevenshe continue to coexist? Will you go back and forth a bit, or is it too soon to really say what form it'll take?
We don't know for sure, but I can see them coexisting. I think my priority is really releasing music as Hevenshe and playing shows as Tonight Alive. That's probably the balance that it would kind of be. But it is too soon to say, but we were very inspired by the shows that we played in Sydney and the reaction from the fans and how fast the tickets sold and how much demand there was from other cities and other countries. So I think it's inspired the boys, in a way that maybe they needed to catch up to where I kind of felt that their passion still existed. So we'll kind of see how it all unfolds.
Well, I can definitely say I'm very excited to see how it unfolds, because I'm certainly loving what I'm hearing, and it just feels great to hear someone like yourself feeling confident about the music that they're making and feeling empowered to keep creating as well. So feeling very exciting, I feel. Well, I feel like in the interest of time, I should get down to the portion of the podcast from which its namesake is derived. So for anyone who is listening, Trusty Chords sees me follow the 1, 3, and 5 structure of a chord. I ask you about one artist that's impacted you. Yeah, it's quite a novel little concept I've got
that's
going.
Lovely. I didn't realize it was chord orientated.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I thought, I like this idea. How can I make it sound really cool? But one artist that's impacted you, 3 albums have influenced you, and 5 songs you can always turn to. So It is a bit wordy in its explanation, but my first question for you here, Jenna, who is one artist who's inspired you the most, whether it be personally or creatively?
Oh gosh, it really is such a battle to choose between these 2 artists, but I think I might have to say Missy Higgins. The Sound of White came out when I was 12, and I got her sheet music, and it was just such a pivotal moment for me, wanting to, I don't know, I connected with her so easily, and I still love her today. And I went to her concert recently on her tour, and just in the front row with tears streaming down my face as a 32-year-old. 20 years later, I'm like, no, it's not 20 years. No, it is 20 years. Like she's had such a profound effect on me. So I'd say Missy Higgins, for how autobiographical she is, how organic her production is, like how honest and grounded she is, and to how Australian she is as well, is really inspiring.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, honestly, the Sound of White is, I mean, that's the sort of album I really feel should just be handed out to people as they sort of, start getting into music. They're sort of like, yeah, here's your Sound of White. Oh, you're also Australian. Here's Whispering Jack or something like that.
I love that. But prescribed listening.
Exactly right. This is what you must listen to understand Australian music and also feel something as well.
Yeah.
But you mentioned just there, you said Missy Higgins, but it was tough to choose between her and another artist. Who was the other artist? We can add them as honourable mention if you'd like.
Yes. Honourable mention for Alanis Morissette.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So not dissimilar, really. Maybe a Canadian kind of parallel type of artist.
Oh, absolutely. And I also feel that I'm sorry if I'm stepping on your explanation there, but I feel like Alanis Morissette, a lot like Missy Higgins, is one of those artists whose biggest songs overshadow some of her best songs in a way. Because I mean, I will swear up and down that Jagged Little Pill is a top 10 album. Is a 10 out of 10 album. And it's like, you listen to anything but the singles and you're like, why weren't these things singles? You look at the rest of her work and you're just like, this is bangers all the way through.
I agree. I love that record through and through. It's actually going to be one of my 3 albums.
Well, that serves as a perfect segue for me to say, what are the 3 albums that have impacted you the most, Jenna? This could be albums you're always throwing on, or something that was integral to your musical evolution.
Yeah, it's tricky because I didn't find Jagged Little Pill till I was about 20, even
Mm.
though the singles were so huge growing up. I didn't connect with the record all the way until I was 20. But when I found out that Alanis Morissette and I share a birthday, even if it's a few years apart, I felt like, oh, this really makes sense. I really feel she's one of those artists that I go, oh, I could have said that, or she took the words out of my mouth, or how does she know I felt that way, kind of thing. And I'm fortunate to have my fans say that to me. And Alanis is the artist that makes me realize that's possible.
Mm.
But yeah, I love the spiritual undertones in the rock music in on Jagged Little Pill, and how vulnerable she is, but yet like so embodied in her womanhood that it doesn't feel like a vulnerability in terms of like exposed and like weak or anything like that, but
Mm.
just like voluntarily raw.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, I know that I mean, I know Alana seems to get she seems to be the one who is sort of, I guess, emblematic of like, again,
Mm,
to use a phrase I don't necessarily agree with, the angry young woman sort of thing, where
yes.
like, Jagged Little Pill was so raw and she was just so, righteously angry
Hmm.
in that album. And
Hmm.
I feel that that is something that definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for a lot of artists. And I feel like that
Yeah,
it's, if without her, there wouldn't be a lot of the music we have today. And that could be
I
a big
think you're so
call,
right.
but I mean, obviously you agree there, which is nice to hear. I'm
Yes.
validated in what I'm saying. Um,
Yes.
but I could ramble on about Alanis for hours, honestly. But we have two other albums we should get to. So
Hmm.
what's your second album, Jen?
So Rage Against the Machine self-titled
Mm.
is another record that was really influential to me, potentially more as a person and as a performer more than like as a musician and songwriter. I would separate those things. Um, just how passionate the music is and the vocal deliveries are, but also like how brooding the music is. Like that affected the way I perform a lot. And I just think there's so much physicality, even just about the audio
Absolutely,
on,
yeah.
of the record without even having ever seen them play a show. Um, yeah, so influential to me, and ended up learning all the words to that record. And it used to be one of my warm up records, before a show when I'd be doing my makeup and kind of getting ready to play.
Mm,
That was sort of like, it's kind of like getting that into the bloodstream.
totally,
Yeah,
yeah.
affected sort of how, like, how do I say this? How I use my body as part of my performance is probably hugely thanks to them.
Yeah, I mean, I just as you
Mm,
were saying that, I was sort of like running through the tracks in my head. I mean, and the one thing I
mm,
keep coming back to is just that sort of sound that Zach De La Rocha has as he's doing Bullet in
yes.
the Head, when it's an almost
Yes.
sort of like almost like groan as he's sort of just like the anger is so
Yeah.
visceral, and it's a sort of thing where
Yes.
you can feel that in your own body as it sort of comes out. So I can
100%.
understand how you can sort of I guess channel
Mm.
that yourself.
I wasn't really a political person, didn't grow up in a household where we were talking about anything like that. So it was quite enlightening and refreshing, and yeah, exciting to hear someone that was so informed that they had so much, yeah, so much conviction and so much anger, and like really seeking justice through music. I don't think I've really heard any other artists, or like I haven't connected with other artists that do that quite the same way.
Yeah, well, I think
So yeah, they're a unique one.
as Rage Against the Machine did say, anger is a gift, and I think we should all use it. And we have
Cool.
one third album to go there.
I chose A Deeper Understanding by the War on Drugs,
Hmm.
and I didn't hear this on again, and it's tricky. It's tricky answering these questions because I think about childhood and teenage years, um, but like hearing the War on Drugs for the first time was really pivotal for me too, and that was sort of like a post Tonight Alive experience, and I hadn't really found new music or been a fan of music like while I was super active in Tonight Alive, because touring, it just felt like the only live shows I ever saw were the ones that I was playing, whether it was a festival or the other bands on the bill. And I got to become a fan of the War on Drugs and like literally fly to different cities to see them and buy the VIP tickets and like
Yeah,
line
wow.
up and like get to the front row, get to the barrier, because like I want the perfect experience of that band. But yeah, they have a kind of, and I shouldn't I wish there was a better word than religious, but there's kind of a transcendental experience for me with the war on drugs.
Mm.
They have like a hopeful and blissful feeling about their music, and like it's rootsy and organic and rocky as well, but like there's something that kind of takes me up and out of the world or up and out of myself that I really appreciate about them.
I understand that completely, when you're able to find that band that does that for you, they're a band you want to hold on to for a very long time. You don't want anything to ruin that.
Yeah.
And I guess lastly, I'd love to know the 5 songs you can always turn to, whether it be for comfort, for excitement, anything at all. Your 5 trusty songs.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, I prepared this according to sort of pivotal and influential kind of songs.
Sure.
So I'll rattle through them a bit quicker. So I chose "You Gotta Be" by Desiree for her wisdom and the fact that, like, you know, that was like a very popular song in terms of like it's a pop song, but it was conscious and it had a deeper meaning and it had deeper wisdom in it. Like she was sending you a message, like for life. Sorry, my brain's kind of getting a little scattered there.
No, that's completely fine. I mean, it is a very empowering song as well, just sort of like getting you into that sort of mindset of, you know, being bad, bolder, wiser, all that sort of thing, harder, tougher, and all that. Yeah.
Read the books your father read.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. It's like, wow, that's really beautiful. I've also put "Colors of the Wind" in here from the movie Pocahontas.
Oh yeah.
Probably weren't expecting that, but I love the way that song honors nature, and culture. That song, really resonates strongly with me, and I have a tattoo of a sycamore pod because she says, "How high does the sycamore grow? If you cut it down, you'll never know."
Wow.
Yeah,
that's definitely one I didn't expect to show up. But you know what? That's actually that's the only song I remember from Pocahontas. So gorgeous. You're really tickling those parts of my brain. That's it's really going to the childhood nostalgia and everything.
I'm so happy to hear that. The next song is "Drops of Jupiter," which I also have a tattoo for. So these are very much like my favorite songs. The drops of Jupiter in her hair is something I kind of paid tribute to on the back of my neck. But I love the ethereal themes in this song, and that's probably like a huge part of it. And describing it turns out actually he was talking about his mother who'd passed away, but I loved the way he was describing the woman in this song.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, she sounded so worldly and experienced and sort of, I don't know, they talk about Tai Chi and like soy lattes and like it paint such a picture of someone that
Mozart
like,
and fried chicken or something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very unusual and like visual song, but I like the way it talks about sort of space into like in reference to a woman. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Amazing. We've got 2 more, I think.
Yeah, so probably on a similar wavelength is Bittersweet Symphony.
Oh yes.
For the way that it's sort of reflecting on life and existential matters and things like that. And we're a slave till money, then we die. And it's like, yeah, we've got to rebel against that. We've got to resist that fate. And Bittersweet Symphony is a song that we wanted to pay tribute to with the song Oxygen by Tonight Alive. So they kind of have a similar feel.
Okay, I'm saying that now.
Who wants to listen to that? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is a very informative chat. I'm liking this, Jenna.
Oh, yay! That makes me happy. My last choice is Bohemian Rhapsody, and this is that's kind of the first childhood memory I have of music is that song, because I tried to learn all the lyrics, and I think there's a piece of paper somewhere with my parents that I tried to write out all the lyrics to the song, but it's because I couldn't write properly as a kid at that time. Like it's just phonetic, and all the words are, there's such creative lyrics that a kid can only, do so well trying to capture that when you can't hardly write English yet.
Yeah, I mean, I could only imagine the phonetic spelling of a silhouetto must have been fascinating.
Oh, so true. Yeah, I just love the imagination that they captured in that song, and the drama and the theatre, and it's a special one to me.
Absolutely. Well, Jenna McDougall, I want to say thank you so very much for your time today and for being part of the Trusty Chords podcast.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for your time and interest.
Thank you for listening to Trusty Chords. If you listened to this episode and enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you were able to take a few moments to like, follow, share, and review this podcast on your preferred platform of choice. As always, no obligation, but I'm forever grateful if you do. As always, if you like social media, I'm over on Instagram and Facebook at Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. There's also a blog on my website, which is tylerjenke.com. That's tylerjenke/Trusty Chords Podcast, all one word. You probably already know by now what you'll find on the site, but you can also find a link to the Buy Me a Coffee platform where you can throw me a few dollars to keep this podcast running if you feel so inclined. And of course, it's totally fine if you don't feel so inclined. Lastly, I need to thank Jenna McDougall for spending time with me this week for the podcast, and I also need to thank Jerry from How Good for helping organise this chat as well. But once again, thank you kindly for listening, and I hope to see you all again next week as I continue to celebrate music and those that create it.